I've heard this notion get tossed around that Colorado doesn't have to win the Big 12 to make the playoff. Nope. And the SEC is why.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. This episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Plenty to get to, picking every game in the Big 12, picking every game in the ACC as well. It's all on the line this week. Well, for some teams more than others. But I've heard this notion get suggested. Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12, was talking about it. I've heard a couple other shows and people asking, hey, can Colorado do this X, Y, and Z? No, they do not control their own destiny to get to the college football playoff for three reasons. Number one, they don't even control their own destiny to get to the Big 12 championship game. They need help. They are big Texas Tech fans this week because you're looking at Iowa State and BYU, neither of which are on Colorado's schedule. And you need one of those teams to lose, or else Colorado, with that head-to-head loss to Kansas State, who they also would need to lose, or they can't leapfrog them in the conference standings, they won't appear in the Big 12 championship game. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is that the Big 12 getting a non-conference championship participant into the college football playoff is not something that I anticipate happening because the SEC is stacking up the playoff resumes and the stars are aligning against Colorado in this sense. So Colorado is capable of winning the Big 12. It is a wide open conference. They have a good enough team. One of their losses is to Nebraska, so they've only got the one Big 12 conference loss. And their schedule is both a good thing and not a good thing in this particular conversation. But here are the teams that are currently in the SEC ranked ahead of Colorado. And by the way, only two SEC teams can go to the SEC title game. Those two teams will be in. And I thought before the year the SEC would get at least four into the playoff. Kind of looks like five is entirely possible. So the Buffs would need a lot of help in that particular conference because Ole Miss is ranked ahead of them right now at 6-2. Alabama and LSU play each other. Ole Miss has also got a couple of notable games on the schedule known as Georgia. And at Arkansas, can't overlook that one either. But certainly you could have a loss in there. But if Ole Miss manages to go 10-2, Ole Miss is going to get in. And if Bama or LSU, the winner of that game, there is going to be one, there's going to be a loser, obviously, finds their way to get to 10-2, they will get in over Colorado. You have Tennessee, who is sitting at 6-1. They still have to play Georgia, but they could just be a comfortable 10-2 and get into the college football playoff. You've got Indiana currently ranked ahead of Colorado. You have Pitt, who plays SMU, currently ranked ahead of Colorado. So at some point, you have to get help from a lot of these teams because your five highest ranked conference champions are going to be in. I think your Big Ten and SEC title game participants are going to automatically be in. There's 6 spots and suddenly that's 7 spots and suddenly we're really whittling it down. And with the way the ACC is trending, its runner-up is likely to be an at-large team in the playoff. Because if Clemson and Miami meet with 11 or more combined, or 11 or more wins each, I think those teams will stay ahead. And here's the third problem that Colorado will run into. Yes, their schedule is incredibly manageable. They obviously would have to win out for any of this to take place. But that is also going to work against them. Colorado has cracked the top 25 in the AP poll. We will see where they fall on Tuesday's college football playoff rankings, the first of the season. Now, I often say help is often given to those in college football who hold their own. And that's true. The problem that Colorado faces here, and this idea that they could be an at-large playoff team at 10-2, is they need a ton of help, and they don't have an ability for a landmark win. Who is Colorado's best win right now? I'm not saying they don't deserve to be ranked. They absolutely do. But when you go down Colorado's schedule, who's the best win? Is it North Dakota State? Is it Cincinnati? It's probably Cincinnati. It could be at UCF, but they don't have a marquee win at the moment, nor do they have an opportunity to get one. because they go at Texas Tech, who I think is losing to Iowa State this week on the road, and that's not going to be a marquee win. And then they host Utah, and they could win that football game. In fact, probably should at home win that football game, which isn't something a lot of people like myself maybe thought before the year. But JT Wistersill of Locked On Utes tried to tell me they could lose that game. Yeah, well, Utah's a lot worse than even he thought. So Utah's a game they could win. But what does that do? And then Kansas, Utah, Kansas, that was my Big 12 championship game before the year. It's going great. And then host Oklahoma State, who are, wait for it, yet to win a Big 12 game at this point in time. So you don't have games that are going to bolster your resume. You don't have games that propel you up the rankings. You have games that can keep you steady, which is, any game. If you win, you're likely to stay steady. But you need teams to lose in front of you. And there are just so many obstacles when you consider that Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State could all easily get into the college football playoff and will be ranked well ahead of Colorado. And the SEC, don't forget about Texas A&M. They could put 5 teams into the college football playoff. So it just stacks up time and time again. And if Colorado finds their way to the Big 12 championship game, then of course they can get in, because they'll be one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions in the country, and they'll have the opportunity to get the automatic berth. But the at-large notion for the Buffs, who are on a bye this week before they go on the road to Lubbock, not an easy place to play, I do not see it. There are so many. Is it a 0% probability? No. Okay, I have to concede that point, angry YouTube commenters. It's not a 0% probability. But the number of teams that are currently ahead of Colorado, the lack of opportunities that Colorado will have to really put their stamp on this season and say, hey, look, we're here. They're just going to go beat up on teams that are in the middle at best in the Big 12, mostly at the bottom. Utah's at the bottom. Kansas and Oklahoma State, both at the bottom of the league right now. Texas Tech could be the best win that they can get. I mean, what's the highest ranking Colorado can get to? Maybe they work their way into being a bubble team, but I just cannot see that much chaos ensuing, because if Ohio State beats Penn State this week, this especially becomes a mess for the Buffs and this supposed at-large playoff path that is incredibly viable. If Ohio State beats Penn State and then beats Michigan and let's say loses to Indiana, Ohio State at 10-2 or Colorado 10-2, who's getting into the playoff there? I know Colorado's got some brand appeal and they're shiny and new and it's Deion and whatnot. Who do you think the committee's going to put in? Like, really ask yourself. Do you think that Colorado at 10-2 in the Big 12, with by the time the season comes to a close, if they were to win the rest of their games, and I think that's entirely possible, they would have 0 ranked wins on it? Do you really think they will get in over a 10-2 SEC or a 10-2 Big 10? Ask yourself how college football tends to view the Southeastern Conference in comparison to everyone else. You don't have to like it. You can hate it all you want. You can take your anger out on me. That's fine. You come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40. I'm not 40 years old. Everyone watching on YouTube definitely knows that. But I do not see this as being a realistic path. For Colorado getting into the playoff, I think is a long shot because they need help in their own conference. And I don't think they're going to get any this weekend. Could come next weekend. Could arrive the weekend after. But they need a lot of help. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments if you have any, or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter. Speaking of the Big 12, let's pick every game, because why not? Can Iowa State go down? Can Iowa State go down? I want to say yes, but that's coming up next. First, this episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Our friends at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan isn't just a hobby. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or agonizing overtime games. You have to be juiced, and 5 Hour Energy is going to give you that particular boost. I am someone who is very busy this time of year. I'm doing 12 podcasts a week. I'm doing play-by-play for Southern Utah University. Sometimes I need a little pick-me-up, and 5 Hour Energy, boy, it can come in handy. 5 Hour Energy knows no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart, soul, and a whole lot of energy. Whether you're prepping for the big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is always a mile long. That's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5-hour energy shot is here to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel this week? Whatever it is, just do it with a 5-hour energy. You won't regret it. Available on 5hourenergy.com and shipped nationwide. Iowa State unbeaten here in Week 10. Did you know Iowa State's only played 7 football games? We're in Week 10. Yeah, it's kind of strange, but that's the way the college football goes sometimes. The question is, at home in Ames, can they actually lose a football game favored by around 2 touchdowns? I don't think so, because Texas Tech is frustrating. It's frustrating for someone like me who's trying to discern every year, is this a good football team? Is this capable of a team capable of winning a conference championship? Is this just kind of a flash in the pan sort of team? And look, Texas Tech has had an offense this year that's been really good, but they are the kings in the Big 12, at least as far as I can see. Someone can tell me if it's different. They have a lot of self-inflicted wounds. Go look at the losses that they have this year. It's just not pretty. I know that Baron Morton went down last time out against TCU, but why did you allow 59 points at home to Baylor? That's all self-inflicted. I don't think Baylor even believed they could score 59 points on the road against anybody, and yet they were able to do it in Waco. Like, that's just not something, even though Baylor was at home, it's just, you shouldn't allow that to happen. And yeah, Baron Morton goes down. It's a tough break, but a 17-point lead in the second half, you got to find a way to hold those games. Like losing to Washington State earlier this year. All right, it's week 2. No one's playing their best football yet. You get caught in a tough place to play up in Pullman. That's one thing. But I struggle to believe in Texas Tech in this spot, and I just keep liking Iowa State. So I'll take the Cyclones to win. I'll take the Cyclones to not cover. Why? I don't know. Big 12. It feels like a big number there. Yeah, but I don't actually care. Changed my mind right here as I'm recording the show. Iowa State 42, Texas Tech 20. Cyclones get the win. Kansas State, you're on thin ice every week because you went to Provo that one fateful night in a crazy game when I still wasn't on the BYU hype train, and Kansas State lost football game 38-9. Well, they just keep winning. It's not always pretty, Colorado and Kansas, for instance. And here's Houston with not one, but 2 Big 12 wins. This is already a successful season for Willie Fritz and company. I thought they'd go 1-11. I did not believe, I might have predicted them 2-10 before the year. I'd have to go double check, but I didn't think they were going to have this many wins all year, let alone at this point with a handful of games to go. They're not going to make a bowl game. They're not going to beat Kansas State in this spot, but Houston's been showing some fight. I don't have confidence that Kansas State is going to win by 2 touchdowns or more. 27-17, they go into Houston and get the win. How about a battle of bottom dwellers? Arizona, tough year for Brent Brennan and company. I struggled taking the victory lap there because my preseason Big 12 championship prediction was just fell flat, complete and total whiff. But Arizona, one of those teams that I ding, 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 hit the nail right on the head. They go to UCF. Knights are favored by 6 points. I have some weird faith in Arizona to figure it out. I don't really know why. They haven't been playing very good football. But guess what? Neither is UCF. And UCF doesn't really know how to win as much as Noah Fafita and Tetairoa McMillan do. So I think those guys finally figure it out. Noah Fafita, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions this year. Not a great look for the Arizona coaching staff. Not a great look, especially when you look at what Will Rogers is doing with Jed Fish up at Washington. They're not a great football team. They have a better record than Arizona, with a lot of Arizona's former players, of course. And Will Rogers is quarterback. Yeah, he's putting up pretty solid numbers for the most part. Fafita, no Jed Fish, and a major problem there right now. So I'll take Arizona to go into Orlando at FBC Morgan Stadium, win the football game. Arizona 28-24 over UCF. TCU Baylor. Look, I've talked about Billy Napier on this show many a times. And I've done that because Billy Napier's a guy who I didn't think should have had his job after he was embarrassed twice in 3 weeks on his home field earlier this season, but he just keeps winning football games. He might hang around with Georgia this week. I don't suspect he will. I think Kirby Smart's figured out the defense, but Dave Aranda's another guy that everyone has just kind of assumed, oh, well, he's done. Oh, well, Dave Aranda's going away. Dave Aranda's not going to be the head coach of Baylor anymore. Dave Aranda can't do this, that, and the other thing. Well, do you know what Baylor's record is right now? 4-4. Do you know what their record is in the Big 12? 2-3. I'm not telling you they're good. I'm just saying they're not bad. By the way, let's put the context in here that Dave Aranda will make to his athletic director in his end of season interview whenever this year comes to a close. Do you remember how they lost to Colorado? Do you? Now, you can blame the coaching staff for a Hail Mary that was well executed, but Dave Aranda is going to say, that one player, he just didn't make. I don't know that he's going to say that. I'm saying he could. It'd be a somewhat logical thing to lay out there. So TCU, who I have described before as a waste of a great offense, I continue to believe that, by the way. Sure, they won last week. Whoop-de-doo. TCU's 5-3, 3-2 in the conference. They're not making the Big 12 championship game. And the reason is they, like Texas Tech, cannot play defense. And so Baylor is favored. How about that? Baylor favored in a football game. They're at home this week against TCU. I think this is the Horned Frog spot. I think Baylor comes back down to earth. I don't trust them entirely. They're playing a little better than I thought they would. They have won games in which I picked them to lose, but I'm picking them to lose again here. I continue to like Josh Hoover. He's cooled down a little bit from the start of the season, but still 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's over 2,600 yards passing. Protect the football here. And I think TCU goes into Waco and wins what was once upon a time a premier marquee matchup in the Big 12. And now it's just kind of a game. It's just kind of a game. But Sonny Dykes and company, it's not a bad team. It's just not a great team. They have the potential to be great because their offense is so talented and Hoover is so good at quarterback. But they are not. They're not a great team, but I do think they're a little bit better than Baylor. I don't think the Bears should be favored in this spot. I'll take TCU 31-27. And finally, the game you have all been waiting for. The game that everyone is going to have eyeballs on. Arizona State at Oklahoma State. Speaking of Big 12 teams, I was very right on, but yet not right enough. I didn't think Oklahoma State was a Big 12 title contender, but I didn't think they'd be 0-5 in the Big 12 right now. Yikes. I mean major, triple, double, quadruple, dare I say quintuple yikes for Oklahoma State. So I don't know how rocking Stillwater's going to be for a completely uninspiring and tough to watch football team. Arizona State, on the other hand, well, pretty good football team. Pretty solid. I don't know why I'm going to do it. I really don't. I picked them to win last week. Oklahoma State's not going to go winless in conference play. So what I have been for BYU, I will be the opposite for Oklahoma State, it seems. I think the Cowboys find a way to win their first Big 12 conference game here against Oklahoma State at home. I don't know how. I don't know why. They've run the ball better in the last couple of weeks. Maybe Ollie Gordon pops. Maybe. I don't know. But that's so much of this conference. I don't know. Let's just see how it plays out. Oklahoma State, low-scoring game, 2017. They beat ASU. That's the Big 12 this week. But what about the ACC? Well, the ACC is fun. It's not quite as fun as the Big 12. It's still fun. And Miami's favored by a huge number. I'm not really sure why. I'll try to explain coming up next. First, this episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Do you want to bet college football? Seriously, do you? Well, guess what? FanDuel's the place to go. And you can tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's number one sportsbook. Number one. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. They are number one. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get 115 bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. It's at FanDuel.com. College football, all these games. If you think I'm a fool, by all means, go ahead. Fade the picks. If you think I'm a genius, ride the picks. Do whatever you want. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Vegas thinks Miami just flattens Duke. Just goes full, what's that thing that flattens pavement? I don't know. One of those things. They think they steamroll. Miami minus 20. I know Miami's at home. I know Cam Ward is likely to be a Heisman finalist. But minus 20? I'm not on upset alert here. I have gotten comments that I put Miami on upset alert every week. No, I don't believe that's the case. I've watched more Duke football than most of you probably realize. And I think that Duke is a capable team. Notice I didn't say great. I didn't say explosive. I didn't say dynamic. They're capable. Malik Murphy this year, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and he's got just about a 59% completion percentage. Okay, that's not great. That's not great. Duke was a 30-yard field goal away from beating SMU last week. Does everybody realize that? Their defense forced 6 turnovers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What do you want to bet they get at least a couple against the Hurricanes? I bet Cam Ward throws at least 1 interception in this game. Manny Diaz, pretty good coach. And a lot of people might want to talk about the revenge factor for Manny Diaz because he was the head coach of Miami. They didn't think he was good enough. He goes to be the DC at Penn State. Seems to be doing a pretty good job at Duke at the moment. I think Miami wins, but I think Duke is good enough to hang around in this football game enough. 31-20. I'll take Miami to win, but definitely take Duke in the points. Maybe Vegas knows something I don't. The over-under win total is 54.5, which is very low for a point total like that. But I lean towards the under there if you're into that sort of thing. But I definitely take Duke and almost 3 touchdowns. How about Louisville? Good old Louisville. They go to Clemson this week. Tigers only favored by 10. So Vegas thinks there's a possibility of an upset at the very least. I struggle picking against Clemson. They're yet to lose an ACC game. There are 4, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4 unbeatens in ACC play. Yeah, that's right. Notice I didn't say ACC conference because that would actually be like saying the Atlantic Coast Conference play. And yeah, that doesn't make any sense. So in ACC play, Clemson's 5-0, SMU's 4-0, Pitt's 3-0, Miami's 4-0. I think Miami will get to 5-0. I think Clemson gets to 6-0 here. I think Clemson wins. I think Clemson covers. Louisville's defense, has its moments. Tyler Shuck's been playing some pretty good football. They had to stage a comeback last week to win on the road on a Friday night, and I don't think you can do that at Death Valley. So Clemson, give me the Tigers 38-24. They beat Louisville. How about the game that not that many people are talking about, not that many people are going to watch, but has playoff ramifications nevertheless? What happens when a top 20 team picks up a top 20 win? You tend to see them go up a couple of spots. Well, either Pitt's going to be 8-0 and 4-0 in conference play, or SMU's going to be 8-1 with a loss to top 15 BYU and 5-0 in conference play. Vegas likes the Mustangs here. They're favored by 7.5. Ooh, over a touchdown. Against that Pitt defense, SMU better protect the football. This is the key to the game. The key. Last week, SMU found a way, scrapped and clawed, got away with it, won the football game 28-27 in overtime with a 2-point conversion stop. And sure, Duke fans will tell you there was pass interference. Could have been go either way. I don't mind holding the flag. But regardless, they forced 6 turnovers. Duke had a field goal of 30 yards to win the game, and SMU blocked it with 3 seconds to go in the fourth quarter. They were going to kick it, win the game, walk-off winners, and Duke would be ranked right now. But alas, SMU wins. You get credit for that. I like Pittsburgh here. I do. I don't think that's going to be a popular pick. But Pitt on the road, SMU is not the most daunting place to play. They're trying to get the Pony Express all worked up there in Dallas. I don't think it's in full force just yet. And you know what Pitt's doing? They play a little bit of chaos ball. Eli Holstein's been pretty solid this year. Not huge passing numbers, but 17 touchdowns and 5 picks. Reminds me a little bit of Malik Murphy over at Duke. But Pitt's ability to just win football games, it doesn't always look the same with Pitt, but I like their defense. They can force turnovers, and Kevin Jennings last week, boy, I think you can correct some of that in a week. I don't know if you can fix it all in a week. This is not a spot for that. So give me Pitt in what is an upset, but not an upset. Pitt's the higher-ranked team, but SMU is the favorite. Give me Pitt. Watch this. you're not going to see this score prediction coming from a point total standpoint. 21-20. Close game. Close game, but Pitt gets a stop late to win. Florida State, oh boy. Oh boy. Is Florida State still playing football? Oh, I didn't even know. Yeah, or care, quite frankly. Just for the fun of it, because it'd be mildly amusing at this point to see Florida State go 1-11. I mean, this would just be the singular. I don't think Mike Norvell sucks, by the way. I just think this Florida State team sucks. And if you don't think that, I don't know what you've been watching. But I think we're all in agreement here. And by the way, Criswell, at quarterback for North Carolina, has had some moments. Hasn't always been great. Hasn't always been perfect, but not bad, not terrible. I'll take North Carolina to go on the road here and beat Florida State. Wouldn't have picked that before the year, but here we are. I'll take North Carolina 30-13. No, not 30. That's too many points. 24-13. They beat Florida State and that anemic offense. Virginia Tech trying to keep their ACC title hopes alive every week at Syracuse. They're favored at the JMA Wireless Dome. That's not an easy place to go. It just isn't. Syracuse is solid. Syracuse is not great. But Virginia Tech, I think they found their footing. I think defense played really well last week. Offense, it's okay. It's all right. It's better. It's getting there. It has its moments. I don't think it's consistent enough, not in a road environment. I will take Syracuse to win this game at home and put somewhat of a final nail in Virginia Tech's coffin of a disappointing, though not calamitous, 2024 season. I'll take Syracuse at 31-28. Lastly, Stanford, NC State. Stanford, by the way, went into the JMA Wireless Dome and won once upon a time. They haven't won a football game since then. It's been a tough slide. NC State, been a tough season. It has been just flat out. It's been a tough season for NC State. They're at home. They're favored by around 10 points. I think Stanford keeps it close, but loses. That's kind of their MO. 27-23. I think that NC State can win that football game. And how much does that mean to Dave Dorn and company? I don't know. We'll find out. But a win would mean a lot more to Stanford in that spot, because every win means a lot to Stanford, but they just haven't found their way yet. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.